Comments. In this video, we will learn the purpose of and how to write comments in Python. Consider this program. Can you tell just by looking at it what this program is doing? Well, you can probably tell by the use of the words length, width, and height that the program is doing something related to geometry, but unless you're an expert in geometry, you more than likely won't know off the top of your head what exactly is being done. Now, suppose I accompany this program with a file describing the entire program, stating that the program is computing the volume of a pyramid, with the first 3 lines asking for the length, width, and the height, and the final 2 lines computing and printing out the volume. While this approach would work as far as describing the program for you, it's an inefficient approach because it requires whoever is reading the program to have to go back and forth between the program and the external file whenever he or she needs to see the description. What we as programmers need is a way of describing the program within the program itself so that we're not having to look at 2 separate files. This is where comments come in. Now consider this program. As you can see, it's the same program as before, but with the descriptions added to it. Let's break down just exactly what's happening. The Python interpreter starts at line 1 and encounters 3 double quotes. What this means is that it has encountered a multi-line comment, which is a comment written on multiple lines, beginning and ending with 3 double quotes. Whenever the Python interpreter encounters 3 double quotes, it knows that what comes next is not meant to be executed, but is only meant to be read by the programmer. So it begins skipping each line until it encounters another set of 3 double quotes. Once it does, it knows it has now reached the end of the multi-line comment, then proceeds to the next line. Now here, it encounters a line that begins with a pound sign. This means it has encountered a single line comment, which is a comment written on just one line, beginning with a pound sign. Whenever the Python interpreter encounters a pound sign, it knows that the code written on that line is not intended to be executed, but is only intended to be read by the programmer. So it skips it and moves on to the next line. We'll close this video by discussing why we write comments and a couple things you want to remember about comments. In the real world, code is often written by teams of programmers, not just one, which means you will often have to read other people's code and people will often have to read your code. Having comments in the code will not only help you understand other people's code, but it'll also help other people understand your code. Secondly, the code you write will likely be passed on to someone else. So even if you're not working with a specific person at the moment, eventually your code will get passed on to somebody else, and that person will have to pick up where you left off. Having comments written in the code will help that person understand what you're trying to do. And thirdly, comments make it easier for you to read your own code. In the real world, it is extremely common for programmers to have to reopen code that they wrote days, weeks, months, sometimes even years ago, and pick up where they left off. And you'll find sometimes it's hard for you to remember what you're trying to do. Having comments will help you to read your own code and will thus make it easier for you to pick up where you left off. And even in this course, I can assure you, you'll often find yourself wanting to go back and look at old code you've written. The easier it is to understand that code, the easier time you'll have reusing that code when you move on to longer, more advanced programming assignments. Now, a couple things you want to remember about comments. The purpose of comments is to make your code more readable. Thus, your comments should not be paragraphs. They should be extremely brief and to the point. The only time your comment should be long is if you're doing a multi-line comment. And even then, your program shouldn't have more than 1 or 2 multi-line comments because those are generally used to describe either an entire program or a large section of the program. Secondly, you should not have too many comments. Only use them when you believe they are extremely necessary. So for example, if a line of code is simply printing out hello world, you don't need a comment for that. Any programmer will be able to read that and instantly know what's going on. So only use it if you know that the code that's written is going to be pretty difficult to understand. That way, the program will be too long and you're not forcing yourself or others to have to read more than necessary.